there guys, it's Joey. So apologies for there not being a whole lot of videos lately. It's the heat and the humidity and it's been a nightmare and I've had enough. I've had enough of it. Can we skip please? And the lighting is really weird today, so apologies for that, and apologies for this crazy mane. It doesn't like humidity and I don't blame it. Right, so today's video is actually going to be a Lessons of the Dark Goddess type video. And in part and parcel, it's sort of a VR to the Four Queens in regards to her tools video, where she talked about physical items and she was talking about the physical being intimately connected to the spiritual. And this is the Dark Goddess Lessons of Entanglement, I guess, and by which I'm talking about not divorcing the mental, emotional or physical from one's spiritual path, and why I think that's an important part of my particular path walking. I will be drinking water. Apologies. It's the hay fever and everything. Right, okay. So, although I really am not 100% comfortable with calling Morrigan a dark goddess, because I think it is constrictive, I think that sometimes the lessons which the stronger, more primal goddesses teach us are particularly a bit more dark, because they're difficult and painful. And quite frequently people who come to the paths of dark goddesses have suffered in their life and have been through difficult times, and this can be physical difficulties, this can be emotional difficulties, spiritual difficulties, it can be the whole range. And they find that they come to this path after they have been through so much pain, and they've been broken and discarded and bullied and broken and made whole again, basically. And it's one of these processes which is incredibly difficult and incredibly self-defining in how you survive and cope with particular difficulties within your own life. And then you come to embracing a spiritual path, which at first is very much about embracing a dark goddess who acknowledges everything you've been through and acknowledges that kind of warfare that you have suffered and acknowledges all the pain that you've been through and how you have bled. And it might not be physically bled, but you have bled. And I always say to people, everybody has scars, it's just you can't see everybody's. You know, they're not always on the outside. And there's been the current trend to really sort of try and dissociate oneself from the difficult, the negative, the painful emotions, as if somehow spirituality should be divorced from these lessons. The lessons of the emotion, the lessons of the mind, and the lessons of the physical. And we're going to weave into each one of those in particular. But I wanted to start the focus with the emotional lessons, that somehow, you know, pain and sadness and anger are things that we should try and divorce ourselves from in order to walk a spiritual path. There's a difference between allowing particular emotions to poison you from the inside than experiencing them. We are all souls on a human path, a human experience. We are meant to be, in my opinion, having the range of emotions which are accessible to the human condition. We are meant to be in the human condition. We are meant to experience everything. And it's supposed to be a tactile experience. We're supposed to feel our way through. And really, it becomes, in my experience, in my opinion, one of the defining traits of how you become a stronger, more courageous human being, that you have seen difficulty, you have seen pain, and you have survived it, you have gotten through it. Following that comes usually a sense of guilt, a sense of separateness. And this may or may not be one of the defining factors that leads people to seek a spiritual way of looking at the world, to seek deeper meaning, to better understand who they are, and that the depths of emotional feeling in whichever emotion it is that they have been feeling, or the range of emotions they have been feeling, has purpose, has connection, that the deep personal anguish is one side of the soul, along with the deep personal joy. So all emotions are part and parcel of the human condition, which is not something that we should be seeking to divorce ourselves from, and I really, truly believe that. Suffering and pain that breaks us is often defining, and it's sad in a way, but it's sort of, you become aware of your true self, you become aware of what you're truly capable of surviving, how you get through, and in moments where you are put under the worst case scenarios and you shine or fall apart, and probably both, and you come to grips with everything that you have managed to fight through, and then you come to a place of spirituality, and suddenly there's these people telling you that somehow all these experiences are, human, mundane, not worth it, not spiritual. You should be divorcing yourself from your experiences, and I find something fundamentally iffy about this concept, because we're all where we're supposed to be. We're all supposed to be human. We're all given our choices. We're all walking our path, and it couldn't be any other way, or we would have ascended or whatever already. Depending on how you feel about that sort of thing, of course. It's my personal belief in reincarnation, for example. It makes far more sense to me that we keep coming back and learning all the lessons that we need to learn, experiencing all there is to learn, which cannot be learnt in one lifetime. Excuse me. Heat. Oh, this is why I've been reluctant to make videos, because of this stupid heat. And in a way, I think, there's this idea of an elitism that forms around those that can somehow divorce themselves from their emotions and their physical selves, and it leaves me with a feeling of something completely lacking. To want to divorce everything from what a spiritual life is. Now, I can't argue with it, how, anybody else chooses to conduct their spiritual path. It's not really my business how other people choose to walk their path, and if they feel they need to divorce themselves from the earthly things, then that's up to them. But to me, at least in a pagan sense, we're all intimately aware of our relationship to the earth. There are witches and pagans who find themselves less earth-based and spiritually based than some of the others, but as a whole we're all aware of the need of this planet to be good to our fellow man, to look after the environment, to not be killing the world. And it's interesting then that when we're so intimately aware of the power of Earth, that we somehow start to disregard Earth within our own selves. And our own selves would be the physical. It never sat well with me growing up learning about spiritual religious paths and the main dogmas that taught that, you know, the physical body and the temptations of the flesh and all this, that and lot were evil. And it never really sat well with me at all. I think as a witch, as a pagan, a spiritual being, whatever you want to call it, there's something about touch which is incredibly spiritual. Coming into contact with, at first, the physical form of something else, or someone else, and then the interweaving of the energies between you and that other. And in a sexual sense, it's intimacy and connection, and it can be an incredibly beautiful bond which is born from a spiritual level, a deep, meaningful connection. I'm not going to say everybody in the world is like that, and I'm not going to say everyone's going to hold this opinion, but for me, it kind of has to be that way. After everything I've been through, after everything I've suffered, as you know, in terms of pain, I refuse to allow my experiences to make me think negatively of the sexual experience. And if I believe that it was divorced from the heart and the mind and the spiritual, it becomes fragmented and negative. And in that regard, I don't think you can separate the emotional and the mental and the spiritual and the physical. I think they all combine into one energy weave, and that is how it should be, in my opinion. As practitioners of energy, you know, quite frequently witches, there are other labels and things, are aware of the energies, the vibrations of everything around them. So people in the pagan communities are very familiar with concepts such as chakras or auras. Now, chakras is more of an Eastern philosophy, but it becomes integrated into a Western one, but in modern times. But we are, even, you know, from a Western historical perspective, aware of the idea of plant spirits, crystal spirits, the human energy field. To the point where, you know, you can feel your own energy. All you have to do is rub your hands together and lift your hands apart, you can feel it. And as spiritual beings, we are aware of all this energy around us. So we're aware of everything having a life, everything having that sacred essence. So how then can we, for a minute, start to divorce any particular physical thing from the realm of spiritual based on some assumption in our head or something, some prejudgment from somewhere? If we hold Earth sacred, we can't hold anything physical less sacred in our own physical nature, in our surroundings, you know, the trees and the plants and the animals and other people. You have to sort of overcome the barriers of prejudgment and fear, I guess it is, because there's so much history of this predoctrination of fear around the sexual self. Hundreds of years of guilt. And this guilt is even applied in non-spiritual fashions, particularly, in my opinion, towards women. even in the modern day, through all sorts of sources. As if, a woman who is sexually liberated becomes labelled as certain things, and somehow women should be ashamed of their sexuality, and that's even been promoted by unfortunateness in the pagan community, and it becomes this horrible thing, this horrible prejudgment of a person's spiritual bonds through their sexuality. Now, for a spiritual experience to be connected to the physical, it has to be fully consenting, fully healthy relationships. I'm not, anything outside that realm is not healthy, and can be damaging. But in terms of embracing who you are as a human being, on a sort of a physical level, should be part of the spiritual experience to understand the relationship of touch and energy. And it's so funny how when you start to really think about it, the physical in terms of sensation doesn't have to be purely sexual. A touch can comfort. A touch can make someone, it can be part of a joke, a laughter situation. It can be sexual, but it doesn't have to be. It's a whole wealth of communication. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? It's a whole wealth of communication which is nothing to do with the spoken word. It is the language of the physical, the human relationship to how we integrate our physical behaviours into who we are, our psychology, and how we sort of interpret others' behaviour. We communicate. I'm moving my hands about right now, you can't really see it because they're down here, but we have this whole language of physical communication, and it becomes part of who we are on every level. So the way we touch, the way we hold, the way we write, the way we pick things up, the way we talk with our hands, the way that we flirt with our physical selves, the way that we are as sexual human beings. It's just part of the imprint of who we are. And the imprint of who we are, to me, isn't separate from our spiritual soul self. It is tied up. It's intimately connected. It's integrated. We can't be who we are in the physical world and think our soul is different, because who we are in the physical world reflects on our soul and vice versa. Or our spiritual self, however you want to label it. And that is true as well from the emotion. The emotion underweaves all of that as well. How we feel, how we react, how we believe. It becomes who we are. And I don't think we can honestly, pretend that the two are separate. Excuse me. In some ways this ties into the Four Queens' idea of physical items being part of our spiritual path and the backlash of materialism. Because certain spiritual things sort of just become part of our practice, become part of our outward representation of ourselves, if you like. Because it becomes a physical outward representation of our likes and things that we are drawn to, and it speaks very much of who we are as a spiritual practitioner. Now, if one of the easiest examples I can use for this, I don't have, oh, okay, hang on, is crystals. So on the surface of it, quite frequently when I go crystal shopping, I choose the crystals that I am drawn to, and this will be doing half the job. I will look at it and I will pick them up, and if I am visually attracted to them, I'm a very visual person, as well as a very vocal person. I'm all about the senses. I made myself laugh, sorry. That's so lame. Right, but in terms of a crystal, so you'll go crystal hunting and you'll look at a crystal and you think, oh, that really appeals to me. That's pretty. I like the shape. I like the texture looking. I like the colour. And then you'll pick it up and you'll feel it. So you're then engaging into the physical, you know, feel it, and you're feeling the energies too. And you think, you know what, that little crystal is coming home with me. Or that particular little crystal's gone for a walk. It's like, I've had enough of this nonsense. This is raw obsidian, by the way, it's amazing. And that whole experience that I just described to you there is a spiritual based choice for a physical item that you will then incorporate into your spiritual life, and is the connection between the physical and the visual and the emotional response that you had to a physical item that you will then take home and feel the energies of and incorporate into your practice in however you best see fit. I think that worked quite well as an example. I quite like that. And that process then you see you can apply to all sorts of things. And realise that you can infuse everything you do in the mundane with a spiritual idea. And the more aware you become of it, the more natural it becomes, the more regular it becomes, and you'll see how you can incorporate your spiritual self, your magical self, into your everyday. It can be, you know, through eating, through the foods you eat, through incorporating certain herbs and spices and things into your diet for health reasons, for magical reasons, and infusing it all with energy. I think that just about covers what I really wanted to get across in this video, and I think that's everything. Hang on, let's check my list. So I'll just finish with this. I had this thought about a spiritual path, particular pagan path, should be down and dirty. Hands in the mud is what I call it. You should be feeling the earth under your fingers. You should be having those human experiences. You should be dancing in the rain. You should be feeling it on your skin. You should be embracing the physical sensations, as long as they're healthy and happy and consensual, in all forms. And therefore we need to let go of our fear of it, and let go of any spiritual elitism about physical not being as connected to the spiritual path as everything else, as well as emotions and our experiences. So that's it for this video. Many blessings.